Right, I was really excited. I wanted to show the repotting of this tree. I have been working on it for quite a few years. There's not a full styling video of this tree. And that is because most of the time I've just been doing stuff to it that doesn't really lead to styling. There's a scar here. It was chopped at this level. I grew it out and I chopped the sacrifice here. Then I grew it out and I chopped the sacrifice last summer here. And this used sacrifice branch has a couple of purposes. First of all, it draws a lot of sap, forcing the roots to really work, expand into the pot, establishing the pot, widen up, but also at the same time pushing a lot of sap here along these wounds, helping to heal. That will aid in closing the wounds on the one hand, and at the same time I don't need to let the lower branches grow all that fat. They are growing a little bit fat and I've wired them out over winter. Can actually remove the wire now because they've set. It is early summer and this year I was thinking maybe I can take a lot of air layers. I actually made a joke, how many air layers can one take off one tree? And I counted I think 26 or 27. But having a huge whip on the tree helps to strengthen the tree, not just by all the sap flow, but what it also does helps to establish a thicker trunk. The tree will need to rebalance itself. It wants to counteract the pressure of this whip and therefore grow stronger here at the base. Now this here used to be a root. I removed the root to get a better root spread. And this is actually quite exciting because now I'm going to take it out for the very first time since I got it from a field and planted it up and removed the root. So I really don't know what the root ball looks like. It has been in this pot for 4 or 5 years. I'm going to take it out, I'm going to prune the roots. Let me get this out of the pot. I'm not going to bore you with all the repot stuff unless there's something interesting to show. So when I bought the tree, it was planted like this. This was a root at the same level as this root. So it was going sideways. Now I've kept this root and I've removed that one, going for a nebari like this, which looks a lot better. But because I've removed this root, here is a massive root that I didn't remove, and I'm now going to try and cut this off, and then maybe in the next repotting I can do something here. But this is roughly the planting angle for afterwards. Let me get my scissors and see whether I can lop this off. Maybe I need to use a saw. So it is. Very big stump. And now this is a lot flatter already. This is a nice preparation now for planting it in the pot later. So this is all gone and I have a good roots here that can fill this gap. Guess I can plant it up. And before you know it, it's spring. The tree has started to push. There's been a lot of wind. And there's going to be lots more wind the next couple of days. So I'm going to prune this back a little bit. I'm going to remove the branches that I really don't want. And I'm going to tie a few branches down. Maybe even put a little bit of wire on some of these. For instance, here at this lowest point on the left. This is the first branch on the left. This looks like it is positioned well. And there's an odd branch going up here. But this branch has a very nice shape coming down. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to remove the rest. This is only going to fatten up the base otherwise. Just like that. This opens up the tree considerably, of course. And I know it's painful. I mean, it's a serious amount of foliage that I've just removed. But this is the part where really in bonsai you sometimes just have to be ruthless. Like the same here, there's 2 branches going up. One of them should go this way, opening it up. Here there's a thick branch and 2 side branches, taking it out. You clean up the tree, you remove the thicker branches, you get movement, and now the thinner branches have space to grow out. This I need to pull down a little bit, but it's starting to look better already. Now I have space to also here look at this cut side. So this is where last year I had a massive sacrifice branch going up, aiding in healing the big scars here on the side. But now it is time to start removing the lump here. And there's a nice little small branch coming to the front, and there's a few branches in the back. And ideally I keep all of these. So I have to be a little bit careful here on how I go about doing it. It's hard to get to on top of that. Small segments, step by step, leads to minimal damage to the rest of the tree. And here of course I'm going to use cut paste. And now here on top there's lots and lots of branches, and of course going to only keep one of them. Now if we look in here, this is where there used to be a sacrifice branch here, and it has died back a little bit, and this is where I just cut off some branches. So I'm going to clean all of this up, scar the edges of the wounds, and then use cut paste again to aid in cleaning this up completely. So this I want to close over, so I'm going to remove all the wood that's sticking out, and then I'm going to scar the edges of the wound with a sharp knife. So now for this branch I'm using one of the simplest way to position it. It's basically just bending it down and then hooking the wire here around the rim of the pot to hold it in place. And I'm not too concerned with the attachment here, because in the end this is all going to be cut off. I'm just going to use the basic entrance. Now the lower branches I might have to actually wire out a little bit. Now in Japanese maple has the tendency to grow two branches on each side. So one on the left and one on the right, and the continuation. I'm just alternatingly taking off the one on the right, the one on the left. And then here also the one on the left. And now I'm just going to prune back a little bit. After all, I don't want to encourage length anymore. I now want to get a little bit of back budding here. Want these branches to start settling in. This is the real initial styling of this tree. And over summer it will shoot multiple times. But at least now it is prepared for the winds that are coming over the next 48 hours. And it won't blow apart completely, except for maybe this top, so I'm going to reduce that as well. And that's pretty much it, I think, for now. This one can go, because there's already two branches, and this can be considerably shorter, just like that. So a few weeks have passed, we're now in May, and what you see here, good extension growth on top. But the side branches, the buds, have barely started to open. This is a consequence of a top dominant tree. The top is always much stronger than the bottom branches. So what I'll do is, throughout the season, if I see that the top is taking over, just remove the growing tips here from these top branches as they are extending. That will trigger more buds lower down and on the inside, and allow the lower branches to catch up and also become strong. is late May, and you can see the tree has responded really well to the earlier actions. The main downside now, what I can see, is I don't have it in full sun, and you see that this growth is really laggy, which is not very nice. And next to that, I see the wire is starting to really cut into the bark. So I really need to unwire. I need to check whether I can put it in a sunnier spot. And I'll prune out the top a little bit, because the top is getting really dense. There's lots and lots of side branches which I don't really think are a good idea. Similarly here, I get extension growth at the end, so I can now start to prune back, because there's lots of inner branching coming up as well. But first, and now for the pruning, it's a little bit awkward because I want these branches here in the lower part to thicken up. But it is still quite a wide tree and I don't really have space for that. Here is a three-way split, and let's resolve that. It's now a two-way split. This I'm going to let grow. This I'm just going to remove a little bit to keep it into shape. Here, this will aid in thickening. I remove things that are growing at the base of these branches. Now here, this branch really is very long and it's a three-way split, so I'm just going to remove it a little bit. This will also aid in giving it a better spot in the sun. Actually, this is ugly. Right, now here in the top, what's happening is a lot of congestion. And a lot of that congestion is caused by sprouts that are appearing here at the base of all these side branches. This is of course an ugly cut, which is still healing, but it doesn't mean that I want all this growth here at the base. This is okay for a side branch, and I'm going to keep it short because I might actually want to use it to cut back to in the future. Then I have this very long pin that I'm just going to leave in place, except for branches growing inwards. And we have a similar situation here all the way in the top. Not sure, this leaf is probably in the way, but here there's a branch growing inward, causing a lot of congestion up in the top, and I don't want branches growing back to the top. So if I remove that, it's already a lot clearer. Now here there's two branches coming from the main trunk. I do like one, but not two. So one can go. This one is in an inner curve and I'm going to remove it. Here is the top with two side branches. I'm going to remove those. Now the top has sprouted two side branches here, which will aid in taper and movement. And this way you already see how a tree can become opener. Here is a side branch that comes downwards, which is nice. And there's one going up. That means that the one that's going backwards is not needed. And the same for the small one here in the elbow. I'm going to remove that as well. Now here on top is a three-way split. Let's remove one. So the profile is getting much better, and these upper branches I don't really want to thicken up. So I'm just going to remove some of these extensions here. I don't want these to thicken up. If anything, I want inner branches here on these side branches to occur. In the top, I don't want this one to fatten up, but this one, yeah, this one can go up so that this fattens. And also here the cut mark in the back is going to close over a little bit. Here I don't want any extension on these, so I'm just going to remove the new growth. It is July and fertilizer and sun have done their thing. Look at these extensions. But I am not after extensions, certainly not in the top where I actually want fine growth. So nothing to be done, but prune back. Here of course you pay attention that you get nice bifurcation and that branches that go vertical are removed over branches that are more horizontal. Also shorter internodes are better. And yeah, basically just prune it back roughly to a profile. What will happen now in the rest of the season is that more and more branches on the inside will form, and that will then create the ramification that in winter I will wire out, position, and that will create my tree in the end. This I'll use, well, let's see. Now some good developments here at the bottom. You see here on both sides the bark has grown so much that they're now touching and starting to connect. This will heavily speed up the closing here, but also here on top this should now go a lot quicker. This is now almost close. You can see with my fingernail this is just one growing season left, and then this will also completely be grown over. Really, really nice. This cut here on top is not growing as much as I wanted, but I can see here at the edge a little bit of extra push. This might need a little bit more convincing, but yeah, here on the edge there's also a little bit of growth. It is closing, but not as quickly as I'd hoped for. September, and you can see this tree is doing really well. It just keeps on growing, and that also means that I keep on pruning. Particularly here in the top, I need to be careful, because what you see is that we have this main trunk line. I had one chop, basically removing a big branch. Then I reduced in height. I grew another trunk segment, which I cut. Then I grew another trunk segment, which I also cut. And then I grew this top branch. All to make sure that you get nice smooth taper on the one hand, and slowly over time you start closing these wounds. Now the wounds are starting to close, but I don't want the trunk on top to fatten up too much. So I'm going to prune that back considerably again, and then I'm going to remove all the branches that are occurring in triplicates back to the twins and bring it back into profile. It is too late in the season to hope for another spurt of growth that will survive winter, but I don't really care. I just don't want to have this outgrow the profile. And then in early spring, or maybe in late fall, I'll rewire. Now there's no hard and fast rules, right? What to keep and what not. This is really where your own interpretation comes into play. Of course, long straight sections with hardly any buds, I just remove. Something like this, it's not of use. That means that now here on the inside there's a lot more light. I prune back to individual side branches that are strategically located and have short internodes. And these long extensions, I really don't need them, especially not when they have long internodes, and I just prune them back and then in spring see what comes. This is a little bit of a frustrating tree, I must say. The internodes are really long on this one for almost all the branches, and it's still not slowing down, which means that probably next year I'm going to have to repot into a smaller pot and see whether then the tree is tempted to create shorter internodes and a little bit more modest growth. I'm also going to stop fertilizing as heavily because the main wounds are almost closed, and you can see the main branches are also almost in place. But something like this, right? This whole cluster, it's just a lump and it's not pretty. Now the main takeaway message from this video should be for you that developing a bonsai can take a lot of time. It is not difficult to get a full crown of branches on here and keep it in a nice profile. What is most complex is what I'm striving for, is to have branches that at the bottom are thicker than at the top, so you need to hold the top back and grow the bottom out, but also that these branches are not just uniform in thickness, but you get the taper. So I have pretty reasonable taper here in the main trunk. I do have a few ugly cuts that still need to heal over and will take another 5 to 10 years before they're really almost invisible. And I want the same thing here for my branches. I want those nicely tapered as well. I want them to have movement and I need them to have elegance. And that just requires a lot of wiring, a lot of pruning, a lot of maintenance, and yeah, a lot of cutting back. And it seems like a waste, but over time that will result in a better tree rather than just continuously pruning it into one shape. In winter I might have to consider putting this in a smaller pot to slow down the growth a little bit, because this is really way too strong. And in early May it's time to look at this tree, do the first little bit of trimming, not too much. I don't want to create lots and lots of backbudding. There's a few aphids here that I'm just going to prune out, and of course, as always, favor short internodes, removing the ones with long internodes. And now it is slowly getting to the point that maybe next spring I'll repot it, and if the roots are good I might put it in a nice pot. It's the middle of November It is dark outside, so yeah, I'm not sure the light is all that great. It is quite glossy. I need to get a soft box, I think. But look at how this maple has developed. As I was watching earlier footage of this video, I realized that actually in previous pruning rounds I removed quite a lot of foliage and it really looked really bare. And I'm pretty sure that as you were watching this video you also have noticed this. But why did I remove so much foliage? Well, partially because it just got too full, but also predominantly because I want to make sure that I get branches in the right spots and develop the canopy from there. This is a bit of an experiment tree for me. I'm pushing myself to get better bonsai, and with that also comes what happens when you prune strongly and cleaning out the canopy. Now as you see, I'm cleaning out the pot, removing weeds, removing old leaves, getting this whole tree ready for winter. Now I'm going to clean out the canopy, remove all the old leaves, wire it out, prune it back, and then it's set for the next season. Note how many branches are here on top and how little these on the lower branches have developed. This is something to look for next year. Very much keep check on the branches on top and allow the lower branches to develop more. What is now becoming very apparent is here the edges of this wound have started to really push in. So removing the dead wood here a little bit aided in getting the wound to close again. It will take another year or two, but it is very much on its way. And also down low, if we look here at the bottom, we see that this wound is now nicely starting to close over. And I think 1, maybe 2 more years and this is all completely closed. Now, what I'm going to do with this tree in preparation for winter is first of all look at places like up here. So what you see happening is the places where I've pruned a few times, like here. You've got a bifurcation and then straight again a bifurcation and some dead branches. This has been pruned, this is dead. So let me first start off with removing all these dead endings, cutting back to the nearest node, and then decide whether I need everything, because I don't want these big lumpy clumps. However, I have been removing quite a lot of growth already, so I might just leave this on for next year to develop. On the other hand, this is a quite heavy branch with a nice little side branch here. So what I will do is I'll remove this straight thick fat section and just leave this little side branch here in the hope that then a bud will develop for a thinner branch next year. Just like this. Now I'm removing bifurcation, I realize that. Similarly, I've got this long growth, but at this level I don't want very long branches. So I can look, there's a node here, there's a node here, there's a little dead section here, and then there's a node here. Let me just reduce it to there for now. Here there's a node, and then there's a node. This is a very long internode. So remove that as well. So now this is all set for wiring out. And this I'll have to do throughout the tree. Look at every single spot where I've previously pruned, removing little dead sections, and checking how long are these internodes. This also is a very long internode, remove it. Otherwise I'm going to build up a tree with very long branches. Here that's a trifurcation. I could say that I'm going to remove all of this, but I'm not going to. I'm just sticking with this existing branch. Also one of those clusters, just thin it out considerably to short internodes, thinner branches, removing everything that is really not useful for the next stage of development. Also what I'm noticing is a lot of long internodes on this tree, which is an indication that next year I should put it in a little bit more sunny position so that the internodes become shorter, the branches grow more slowly. Of course, the more side branches I have, the slower the development of these branches will go, the shorter the internodes. And also if I don't repot all that frequently, I also have shorter internodes. So that's something to keep in mind if you're growing a maple. Keeping it in a pot longer without repotting will aid in developing shorter internodes. So if you don't need explosive growth for instance, closing wounds, then consider putting it in a small pot, putting it in the sun, Now, in order to move big branches, you can of course take thick wire and then wire the branch out and coil it around and then just bend it. But you can also do what I'm doing here. I've got a wire here now at the rim of the pot that I also showed in an earlier part of this video, and I just put that wire around the branch that I want to move down. I'm using a little rubber tubing here to make sure it doesn't damage all that much on this branch, and then just gently pull the branch down, tightening the wire as you go. Always pull the branch and tighten the wire, and don't pull the branch down by the wire because of the risk of breakage. And right, basic wiring done. I can still of course adjust a few of these branches, but the tree is getting quite brittle already. Now this could be a front. If you look from this side, you don't see the cut here and you don't see this cut all as well, and this is also nice and smooth. Can also flip it around and consider this as a front, but as you can see, the crown, the apex is a little bit behind the tree. Now therefore, for me, this is the front of the tree. Just means that this branch here, that when I get a side branch on this side, I'm going to develop it and push it more into this area so this branch comes forward. Of course, I can also take a tension wire now and push this forward a little bit, but that's not optimal. All in all, I think this tree is slowly starting to develop into something, but it is not a great tree. It will need a lot of sun, fertilizer, and a lot of attention next year. So next year I don't have to prune off all that much. But the big scars are starting to close. Also this one here, you can see it is not closed yet, but it has bridged on this side. This is almost closed and this has almost an inch. So it is getting there. Guess that was it for this tree for now. Thank you for watching. This was Jelle, Bonsai. See you next time.